Welcome to Friendeavor, the podcast, the weekly podcast where we explore the highs and lows of friendship with your hosts, Danielle and Kayla.
As we journey through life, our friendships often evolve and change, ebb and flow, and sometimes even come to an end. Danielle and I are lifelong advocates for the power of friendship, and we are here to guide all of us through the many challenges and joys that come with building and maintaining strong, meaningful connections with those around us.
Join us each week as we deep dive into the intricacies of friendship, from navigating conflicts to fostering new relationships and everything in between. With insightful interviews, personal anecdotes, and expert advice, Friendeavor is the perfect podcast for anyone looking to strengthen their bonds with the people they love.
So, whether you are on the go, taking care of chores, or just settling in, get ready to explore the world of friendship on Friendeavor, the podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Friendeavor, the podcast.
Hey. So this week, we're going to be looking at the friendship survey. And this is, if I remember correctly, this is what you kind of like kicked off Friendeavor with. That's how you announced, hey, okay.
Yeah. I didn't tell people it was Friendeavor, but it was like kind of just like a research project is what I presented it as.
Okay. And then how much later after that did you create the Friendeavor Instagram?
So I started, like, Friendeavor started to come together in early 2021. Like, I didn't have the idea in January. I had a separate idea for actually the MemCards. So the MemCards came first. But then after seeing some advice and that kind of thing, like, I knew what I wanted the platform to be. But I knew I needed to know what people thought about friendship as like a whole and their opinions, some of the details, and I just couldn't rely on my own expertise, quote unquote, as it were. So I sent out the friendship survey, like I said, as kind of posed as a research project, 25 questions in April of 2021, just to some friends, and I asked them to pass it along if they felt comfortable. 2 years in, so like almost 2.5 years in, we're still getting replies, which I think is incredible because it only adds to
that is really awesome.
The overarching like view of what people think, right? The more replies we can get, the more authentic and more realistic our results will be. So if you have not taken it, listener, please, it's in our Instagram bio. We can include it in the show notes, so definitely check that out. If you just take a pause on this podcast, go take it and then come back.
Yes. Yeah. And that'll help us too with the content we create.
Yeah.
So we want to create content that will be helpful to you guys and content that you're actually looking for.
Yeah. And it's completely anonymous. So it's not like if you're honest, then we're gonna use you as an example in all of our stuff. No, the content is to help you grow and cater to what you need to be successful. Like I said, completely anonymous, super interesting. So I thought this week, and I know we've been talking about it for like the last 2 episodes, I thought we could just share some of the information with our listeners.
Yes, I'm really excited to hear these because I haven't really heard like the analytics yet. So
yeah, it's so interesting. Honestly, like it is not my like last choice when I'm trying to think of content. It is not like something that I'm like, okay, well, the survey is always good for something. It's like the data for me. It's something that, and if you say data and I say data, listener, please don't get offended. My sister's always like, it's data, and I'm like, data, whatever. But
it is data.
Okay, agree to disagree. But no, it's not just like a last resort for me. I think it's something that your opinion and your insight can help other people grow. So I definitely use it when creating content. But let's start off with talking about our demographics. Demographics is like, who are the people that took it? What is their what if I could put it this way, what's the box we could put them in, right? So I asked participants to select their gender, age range, and their relationship status. Only 3 things. Okay, so male or female. I broke up age ranges into like 18, like 12 to 18, something like that. You know, like your normal chunks of ages that you're going to see when you take these kind of surveys, all the way up to, I think, 65 plus. And then the relationship status. Are you single, married, divorced, widowed, dating, engaged? Just to give us a more well-rounded view of how people see the world. And we'll get into this later, but I think it's so fascinating to look at some of the responses we got on these questions and then tweak the view and see how many of them came from a certain age range, or do men think of things totally different than women? So it's super interesting to me.
Yeah.
About 200 people were surveyed as of now. I haven't checked it in a while. I should check it to see if we're over 200, but just for reference as we talk about things. So the funny thing is 88% of the participants were women. So gentlemen, if you're out there listening today, please, please, please take the survey. It will affect the
Yeah.
results. Like, we need to know, because guys got friends too, and we want to be able
Yeah.
to help with that. So, gentlemen, please pop over, take that survey, put us on pause for a second, but make sure you come back because you don't want to miss 1 second of Friendeavor the podcast. We did have an amazingly diverse age range. Every category had somewhere between a 12 and 20% rate, which is awesome to see because it really shows how answers differ between age groups. Kayla, you and I right now and our ages would fall into two different brackets. I am that 25 to 30 age range now, which is insane. I am not 30, but I am in that range. And you would be in the one below me. But it's
Yeah.
just it's really cool to see how answers change based off of that kind of thing.
So, how diverse were the relationship responses?
That one, it was pretty much split down the middle with 40% single, 40% married. We had a scattering of dating, engaged, divorced, or widow, making up the other 20%. I'd like to see more, spread across that category.
Yeah.
But in our circle, you're not gonna see that many like divorces and that kind of thing. So, and the people who are engaged then who took it are probably not now. They're probably married now. So
Yeah.
again, interesting to see if their answers would change. But it was basically 40 single, 40 married, and 20 kind of a mix of everything else.
That percentage for married people is actually higher than I expected. And I love that
Mm-hmm.
married people are prioritizing their friendships as well.
Yeah, I
Love to see
actually
it.
had a theory about that. And I don't know that if someone else had sent out the survey, they would have gotten that big of a response from married people. But I think because a lot of my friends are married, their
Mhm.
support of my, project, my quote project, like I presented it, they were willing to jump in and take it. So I don't really know if it was just my circle or if people are just more receptive to that kind of thing. So you'll definitely see how marriage kind of tweaks the results here and there. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm
But
super interested to see that.
I did want to tell you, we did not talk about this in our podcast plan, but this is such a wealth of information. We might need to split it into a couple episodes. So we have the basic like question and answer response, and then we have some short answer. And I think the short answer area could honestly be its whole own episode. So we'll look into that when we get further down.
Okay, so refresh my memory. Was this like a multiple choice survey, or how
So
was it?
it's I don't know if you're familiar with a Likert scale, but that's the fancy word for it, but I'm sure you've seen it before. It's basically
Okay.
a 5 point scale that you've used if you've ever taken a survey. um it's going from like
Oh,
strongly disagree, yeah, would be 1, and strongly agree would be 5, and then you'd have neutral
okay.
as your 3, disagree and agree would be 2 and 4. So basically
Okay.
it's very simple. It's kind of a fancy word, Likert scale, but that's what the first, beyond the demographics, that's what we got to do, and then we switched it up there at the end, and I'll show you how that changes. But the very first question was, I believe that my friends should be trustworthy. Now, we had a whole episode, our last episode was about trust. And if I was taking the survey, and again, if you've not taken it, please pause and go take it because I don't want this information that we're sharing to affect
Yeah.
your outcome. But I was expecting a 100% strongly agree response on that.
Yeah, you'd think.
You'd think, right? Like, I want my friends to be trustworthy. Yes, I strongly believe that. It was 97%. Now, on the surface, it's
Oh.
like, oh, yeah, well, that's almost 100, and any survey is going to have, a margin on either side. But honestly, I was kind of shocked to find out that there are people who only agreed or were like even neutral about that question. Like, yeah, my friends can be
Mhm.
trustworthy. I don't really care. Or yeah, I agree, but that's not the most important thing. That's the kind of response you get, or like the understanding you get when you have a 97% strongly agree rate.
Right.
Again, you might say like, oh yeah, that's not that big of a deal, 97%, that's only 3%, but to me it was just like kind of eye-opening and interesting.
How many people answered that question? Was it 200 people?
I think we had total response on all of these questions, all the Likert scale questions. People started skipping out on responses on like the short answer. So I believe it was like right
Okay.
around the 200 mark, which makes it six
Wow.
people that said
Yeah.
less than strongly agree.
Wow. I wonder what the thought process is behind that.
I don't know.
Um,
I don't know. We'll get into a question here in the next couple questions about the most important traits, and that's super interesting. I'm sure you'll have questions
yeah.
on that. But the next question on the list was, I believe my friends should be intelligent. When you hear that, before I tell you the results, if I said on a Likert scale, 1 to 5, I believe that my friends should be intelligent, what would you say?
I'd say 4.
Okay, so you agree that your
Yeah.
friends should be intelligent.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. This question was a little bit of a trick question, I gotta say, because when people think of intelligence, they typically think of being quote unquote smart.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of different types of intelligences. So I was really trying to see that if that concept would shine through the responses. Almost 44% of people, so like half, were middle of the road neutral on this one, which I think speaks of people being willing to be friends with anyone. Okay, like,
Right. Yeah.
like, oh no, they don't have to be intelligent. I'll be friends with anyone. They don't have to be smart if you think of it in that lens. However, like I said, it's a little bit of a trick question because there's so many different types of intelligences that to me, I would say a minimum of 4, probably a 5, because you think of like musical intelligence, emotional intelligence,
Hmm.
interpersonal, intrapersonal. So like being able to examine yourself. So inter being INTER, like people, person to person intelligence, intra, NTRA, in INTRA, intra, being able to examine yourself. Um, you've got like spatial intelligence, people who are really good with like space and time, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
Linguistic, I don't know if you could think of any other types, but like math. So that's your traditional
Yeah.
smart, your logic, your math, and like your naturalist. That there's
Hmm.
so many types of intelligence. So the reason I would say 5 or 4, but probably 5, is because of that scripture that says like iron sharpens iron. You
Hmm.
want to be around people that are going to make you better.
Yeah.
I totally understand like someone saying, "Oh yeah, they don't have to be intelligent." And I'm not saying you have to exclude people from your life who are not intelligent. It's just like you got to surround yourself by people who are going to make you better, make you a better
Hmm.
person, make you think differently but in a better way, and just make you be a better person.
And each individual is going to have their own experiences and their
Hmm.
own stories that build that kind of intelligence in whatever area it may be
Hmm.
that will help build you.
Yeah, and if you think back
So,
to episode 1 where we talked about common myths, and one of the myths was my friends need to be the exact same as me. I'm not saying that if you think that you should have smart friends, like, because 23 people, 11% said, yeah, my friends should be intelligent. They could have been thinking, yeah, they have to be smart, like traditionally smart, or they could have been
yeah.
thinking any one of these types of intelligences could help me be better. So if you've got a friend who can't multiply, doesn't know his math facts, but they've got the deepest emotional intelligence of anyone you've ever met,
Hmm.
guess what? They're still going to make you better.
Yeah.
If you've got a friend
Absolutely.
who couldn't find their way out of a wet paper bag, directionally, but they can play the piano like you've never met someone who could play the piano, guess what? They're still offering you an intelligence that's going to make you better. It doesn't have to be the same type of intelligence that you are.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving into question 3. I believe that my friends should be funny. This one doesn't really tell us anything in particular. Like, you can't really draw a ton of it, but it does help us to see how people view what they get from a friendship. Okay. I believe that my
Hmm.
friend should be funny does not mean that you're not counting yourself in that. You're counting, are your friends funny? I don't know if that makes sense. So you're
Yeah.
viewing, like, if my friends are funny, that's something that I get. I get the humor, I get the joy, I get the laughter. I personally, myself, I want my friends to be funny because I want them to make me laugh and feel good and leave them feeling happy, right? So my answer for this would be 5. Does that mean I'm going to exclude someone who's, not funny? No, I'm not going to exclude them, but I'm definitely not going to actively seek spending time with them. The survey
Interesting.
respondents, however, again, very middle of the road. 40% said, eh, it's okay if they're not. They're neutral about it. Like, they don't have to be. It's okay if they are, but it's like, to me, that's kind of crazy. 36% said they agree with that. But again, I love feeling joy. I love laughing and I love the memories associated with it. So for me, that would be a 5. And one thing we have to consider in answering all of these questions is that even though this is a completely anonymous survey, everyone, including myself, will answer questions to see themselves in the best light. So it might sound selfish to say, yeah, I think I want my friends to be funny. And so they'll be like, no, they don't have to be, even though it's an anonymous survey, because, you know, that makes them
That is
seem
true.
more mature.
So did anyone say like absolutely not? Like all the way on the bottom of the scale?
The the agree and the neutral made up about 75% of the respondents, but there were some on every level. 3% said that they strongly disagreed that their friends should be funny. I don't know if that means that they think that you don't, that they're not actively seeking out only funny people, or if they actually don't
Yeah.
want their friends to be funny. I can't say, just looking at a chart, but um 20% said disagree. They disagree. So if you think about it in the way the sentence is phrased, because they're all statements, right? It's not like a, do you think your friend should be funny? It's, I believe that my friend should be funny. And then your
Mm-hmm.
gut reaction is your answer. And these people are like, no, I disagree with that statement. Okay, that's
Yeah.
you. And there's no fault. It's not like one is better than the other. But I know that if
Yeah.
I was taking
Wrong
it, then I
answer.
would be with the 11% that said they strongly agree. But that's
That's
just
funny.
me.
I would probably fall into the neutral for this one.
Yeah. Why is that?
Yeah. Well, I definitely think you need a funny friend.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have a funny friend and she is the funny friend of our friend group.
Mm-hmm.
But if I was pursuing a relationship with someone and I found out, oh, they don't really have a sense of humor, that wouldn't necessarily be disappointing to me.
That's so interesting.
So,
That just proves like
yeah.
how different people are from person to person. I mean, you and I as sister-in-laws like have totally different, well, not totally different, but decently different views on this. So
Yeah.
in my friend group, all 4 of us are hilarious. Okay.
Yeah. You guys really are.
I'm saying, like, you are not gonna see 2 of them out there like cracking jokes in front of a group of 50 people or whatever. I would, but when it's just the 4 of us, like, there are no people on this planet who can make me laugh like them. And that's so much the centrality of our friendship. And that's not to say that we just cackle like hyenas every time we're together. Well, that's not all we do.
Well,
That's not all we do the whole time is cackle like hyenas, but I appreciate that we do. I mean, there are nights that we have these very deep, soulful conversations. It's not just a laugh fest all the time, but they are the ones who bring me joy. And so if
yeah.
I can't say that if I'm looking to make a new friend that I'd be like, "Hey, are you funny? Are you funny? Hey, take this survey. Are you funny? Are you funny?" That's not what I would do, but I think that the natural humor of friends is what strengthens bonds, and that could just be my
Mhm.
experience. But I just think about like some of the stuff that they say, and it's not like inappropriate. It's just witty. It's so
Yeah.
witty, and I'm like, and I am typically viewed as like the funny one, like when I'm out and with other friends and that kind of thing. Like,
Uh-huh.
oh, you're so funny or whatever. But I'm like the dumb one in that group. Like I'm not the one that makes them roll laughing. So that's
No,
just
the things that they come up with so quickly is
okay.
just mind
Hey,
blowing.
listen to
Yeah.
this. Abby sends us a meme today. It's not even a meme. It's a picture. It's a picture of a product. Okay. And you know how there's these trees, like, I don't know if you've ever seen them in different parts of the country. They have them back in Michigan, I think, where these like giant walnut like shaped balls. I don't think they're like actual walnuts, but they drop off trees. Have you ever seen those?
And they have the fuzzy stuff inside of them?
Yeah, and
Or
then
no?
like some like we would
Okay.
walk down the street and like kick them or whatever. Well, there's
Yes.
this product called the Nut Gatherer where you roll it across your yard and it like picks them up so that you don't like roll your ankle over them, which I have done, you know. And so you like push it around your yard and it's like a tennis ball collector. I don't know if you've ever seen one of those, but you roll it and these like little grates snap them up into the thing. And she's
Okay.
like, she sends it to the four of us and goes, one of us when the other three lose it when we get old. Okay. One of us would be the nut gatherer going up and gathering each other. Okay. Trying to
Oh
explain
my
it like
gosh.
this is not, I mean, I'm about to lose it right now because I'm just, it was out of the blue. Okay. We had not been even kind of talking about anything. She sends that with that caption and we all died. Okay, so one of us,
Nut
when the other three
gatherer.
lose it when we get old, the nut gatherer. Okay, again, you probably hear it in my voice. I am like crying right now thinking about it, and you might be thinking, "Wow, Danielle's got a really
Yes.
stupid sense of humor," but it doesn't matter because
Yeah,
it was
it doesn't
hilarious
matter.
to us. And so when I think about those kind of moments, like if I was to make a new friend that didn't have that kind of humor or any humor, I would just be like, "Okay, I don't want to be with you." Like what
Mm,
again, this question is geared toward what do I get from friendship versus what do I give. So that's
mm-hmm.
definitely going to tweak the results because if they said like I believe I should be funny for my friend's sake, if that was like the question, we might have gotten more strongly agrees,
Yeah,
you know. I don't know.
that makes sense.
Okay,
Um,
we're going to take a quick break while I pull it together and we'll be right back with question 4. I think it is. We'll be right back. All right. We are back. I have pulled myself together, kind of. I just looked at the meme again while we are on break. So I probably
that
shouldn't
did
have
not
done
help.
that because the whole point was to get it together during our break. But you know what? I am a semi-professional podcaster, so it is time to move on. All right. I think what's
That whole speech was so funny.
Ooh, okay. Okay. I think we're on question 4. I should scroll back up and check, but we're just going to go ahead and pretend like that's what we're on. We're on question 4. Question 4 is I believe, and this is super interesting. This is when we're getting into the real good stuff. I believe. Okay. In this moment, listener, I proceed to lose it for a very long time. So there are several breaks where my audio cuts out because I am laughing so hard. Forgive me. We'll get back to the episode momentarily.
Oh my gosh.
Let's see the picture again. All right. All right. Oh,
Oh my word.
the question is I believe, or excuse me, the statement is it's not a question, they're all phrases, statements. I believe that my friends should be the same gender as me. You, considering your age and all the things that, make you you, on a 1 to 5 scale, what is your answer for this one?
Disagree.
Disagree. Okay. So not
Mm-hmm.
strongly disagree, just disagree.
Just disagree. Yeah.
Okay. So you would fall into I think it was 21 to 25 was one of the categories. Um, let me pull it up really quick while we're talking about it. But um married 21 to 25, agree. No, sorry, disagree.
Yeah. Let me also just say these kind of scaled answers, I don't do the best with them because I'm the kind of person that's like, it's not black and white. Like, what if this? And there's no disclaimer here. And
Uh-huh.
like, I wish I could explain my answer, So I struggle a lot with these. I did this for it was a premarital assessment, and I was like, I'm gonna have to like explain each and every answer because there are so many things that my mind goes to when I'm answering this question. I can't just be like,
It's got to be
yes, I
gut
agree.
reaction.
Like,
Gut. Gut reaction. Like whatever you immediately think. I read this thing one time. Okay, are you kidding me? I just exited out of the survey. Oh, we have 6 more replies, by the way. Um,
oh.
I heard this thing one time that said your immediate response to something is what you were like raised to believe. Your second response is what you're trying to become, or something like that. And this kind of thing, I think it's better to go with your first response because even if you're working on being a better journey, that's not where you are right now. Does that make sense? So,
Yeah.
like, if you said, if someone fell down the stairs and you started laughing, which is what I would do, and then you went, oh, like, the first thing
Which
is
is what
your
I would do.
exactly your first reaction is who you are. Your second reaction is what you want to be. So you saying aw would be your gut familial reaction of like, oh my word, someone fell down the stairs. Whereas I would be also falling down the stairs because I was laughing that that person fell down the stairs. For example, our friend who at her graduation fell down those stairs.
Yes.
Graduation day, graduation day, graduation day is finally here. I played
Not
that.
the horn anthem.
I played that probably, I don't know, 50 times and then screen recorded it and watch it whenever I'm feeling down because it is so hilarious. That's just a side note. That's not what this question is about. It is about falling downstairs. Man, we've really gotten off on a rail
Oh,
on this one. But
I know. I know. Okay.
anyways, so your gut reaction for this is disagree. When I dove into the individual responses, I found out that 10 people said strongly agree that the friend should be the same gender. Of those 10 people, 9 are married between the ages of 25 to 39. Now,
Hmm.
that's interesting to me because it seems like, again, this is just kind of implications here, but it seems like for that age range, for that demographic, a friend of the opposite gender could be a threat to their marriage. And here in the next few weeks, we are going to be having a super awesome guest on our podcast who we're going to bring this up to and see what she has to say. But for now, it seems like for married people between the ages of 25 to 39, a friend who is not the same gender could be a threat to their marriage. However, not one person who is over the age of 40 feels that way. Okay. If you think about it, it might be that once you hit 40 and you're established and you're moving on and you're more mature and whatever, then having a friend of the opposite gender would not maybe be so much of a threat.
Yeah,
That's kind of my thought. Um,
that's a good theory.
yeah. However, if you drop down to the agree answer, so not strongly agree, but
Mm-hmm.
agree, 4 people out of the 23 people who chose that are divorced. So it's like,
Oh, okay.
if you think about it this
Wow.
way, again, this is pure speculation, but that's what we do here. We take the data and we speculate. It could be that for those 4 divorced people, maybe their marriage ended because of a friend who's opposite gender. Not necessarily anything went down, but it could have been a factor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Coincidence? Probably. Well, like I said, we'll have to bring this up to the person who's smarter than us when we talk about it. But it's like people over the age of 65, 50, 60, 70, they were in the strongly disagree category because we had 40%, 38% of people said that they strongly disagree. So they're open to having friends of the opposite gender, not having
Mm-hmm.
um anything specific age or relationship be a factor in that. This one was, and it's also a stair step of a response. So
Oh,
38% says
yeah.
strongly disagree, 25% said disagree, 21% said neutral, 12% said agree, 5% said disagree. So it's a stair step down. You get progressively less people, it's not like it's one end or the other. A lot of people said no, and then a few, it's sprinkled down to say yes. So we're definitely going to talk about that because I want to look into the individual responses a little bit more and look into those demographics. But yeah, that one is really interesting to me. It could be that age and relationship status affect if you think that a person of the opposite gender could be your friend.
Right. And it is kind of a juvenile concept too.
Yeah.
Like, if you're in a relationship, can't have guy friends, you know?
Cuties.
The reason why I wouldn't go with absolutes on this one, like strongly disagree, strongly agree, like the 1 to 5, is because there are variables. Like, my guy friends don't have to fall in the top 2 tiers of my friendship pyramid. In fact, maybe they shouldn't,
Yeah.
Well, my top tier is my spouse. So yeah, there's only one person
just count
there.
we'll just not count the top tier when we talk about it. And we're going to go into this more next week in our episode of the friendship pyramid. But yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So taking that into consideration, I can have guy friends.
Yeah.
Obviously not to have super vulnerable close relationships one-on-one hanging out with my guy friends.
Yeah.
But I feel like I can have guy friends.
That's a good point. That's a really good point because it doesn't have to be your friends of the opposite gender don't have to be your good friends, and then you have another aspect of this of couples friends. So what if you and your spouse are equally close to a couple, a husband and wife,
right?
You can be just as good of friends with the guy in the couple as the woman in the couple, as long as you all have those healthy boundaries and you're just it's friendship. It's dual friendship. It's you and your spouse with them and their spouse. So
yes,
a lot of different versions of this. I just think that the divorced aspect, married aspect plays such a huge role in that particular statement.
Yeah, that was really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought so too. And like I said, I'm going to dive more into those demographics on those ones, and we'll bring it up to our secret interview coming up. Yes, I hope we haven't said anything about it in the first 2 episodes. I'm just not realizing we may have already said something, but hopefully we kept it a secret because it's a surprise. Okay. We are moving into a new category now. Okay. So all of those were on a Likert scale. This is a up to 5. Okay. So like we had a 1 to 5. This is now picking your top 5 out of 20. So this is because we're talking about what people consider to be the top 5 most important traits in friendship. Okay. I gave them a list of 20 traits, a couple of red herrings in there, but primarily real things that people would look for. Okay. They are in order, and it's not order as in like everyone chose this in the same order, but most people chose this is the top responses. Okay. In a 1 to 5 order. Top trait. Can you guess what it is?
Let's see. Top trait.
For not knowing, I'm not going to blame you if you get it wrong, but like if you could just guess kind of the most like obvious, what would people consider the most important?
Respect?
It is in the top 5, but it is not number 1. Number 1 is trust. So people consider trust to be the top most important, or like 153 respondents put that as one of their top 5. So not necessarily chose it as their number 1, but since that many people did it, it's automatically the most important one. Number 2, honesty. 3, you got it, respect. Number 4, loyalty. Number 5, dependability. So according to these people, not all 200 people said these are their top 5. I want to stress that because there was a wealth of responses for this one, and it's super interesting to see what people value. But overall, those 5, trust, honesty, respect, loyalty, dependability, were the top 5 chosen. I did have people choose them in no particular order. So that's where we got that from.
Okay. So those top five really make sense. I think loyalty and dependability kind of go hand in hand. I
They
guess that's
do, right?
something we could talk about later.
Yeah, we should. But just to skate over it right now, um, loyalty is so finicky to me because we're living in such a modern age that loyalty, if you think about it in, like the dark ages days, having someone who's disloyal to you could cost you your life. If you
Mhm.
trusted them with the secret of your wealth or something like that, then you could be threatened and then they would have broken your loyalty. Loyalty these days, it's just not the same. And we'll go into this a lot more. Dependability is, are you there for me? Will
Mm.
you help me move? Will you stand in the gap for me? Can I depend on you? A lot of people take loyalty to be that, and I'm sure there's overlapping to some extent. Um, but dependability to me is definitely more important than the concept of loyalty, because of just how we live now.
Okay, that makes sense. So, did the sixth come pretty close to the fifth, or was it like a dramatic difference?
Number 6, I didn't list that, but let me look at the chart really quick. Oh, okay, yeah, this is an interesting one, seeing as with the conversation we already had. Number 6, humor.
Really?
31% of people listed humor as one of their top 5 traits. Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
Wow. That
You know
is
what?
interesting.
Since we're here, let me just list off what the other traits were in case you have any questions and we
Yeah.
can talk about it. So we got trust, loyalty, honesty, wealth, physical attractiveness, affection, empathy, ambition, humor, spontaneity, respect, intelligence, dependability, being a good listener, confidence, easygoing, fun, adventurous, being extroverted, or being introverted. So just by listening to
Okay.
that, being just listening to that list, some of them probably were like, squint your eyes, tilt your head, like, what? Why is that on there? But like I said, I wanted to throw them out there because those are important to some people. So
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
it's very interesting to see what people chose. And if you've got any questions about these traits, we can go over them. But those were the top
Yeah.
five, the ones I listed.
Okay. Did anyone actually choose physical attraction?
I am very happy to report that nobody chose physical attraction.
Oh, okay. I mean,
there was
it could have
only
been one of those things that surprise you.
there was only two that had no response though, if that is interesting to you. 18 of the 20 traits were selected by somebody at some point in the process. So being
Okay.
introverted was the only other one that didn't get any responses. However, being
Hmm.
extroverted got three people. And again, it's not right or wrong. You're definitely entitled to your own opinion of what you want your top 5 traits to be. Who are we to judge? However,
Yeah.
it's just interesting.
Yeah.
3 people chose being extroverted as one of their top 5
Top five.
important traits.
I wonder if those people were extroverts themselves and they
Possibly.
value that. Yeah.
Possibly. And I think we have an episode coming up about this. We are going to talk about this in a future episode, but um it also could be that an introverted person would want an extrovert to balance them out,
Mm-hmm.
to,
Yeah.
like I said, stand in the gap for them if they're at a party or, that kind of thing. And I'm not saying that introverts can't hold their own, um, but it's very possible that they need that yin to their yang. Uh,
Yeah.
Another one, intelligence, that we already talked about. 6% of people had that in their top 5. Wealth, we had
Okay.
1% of people put wealth in their top 5.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Number 7 was
Mm,
fun, the number 7 trait overall, which
okay.
beat out empathy by 1 vote.
Oh, wow.
55 people chose fun, 54 people chose empathy. And they could have overlapped, but I don't know. This kind of thing is so interesting to me. I get very nerdy when I can
Yeah.
see these kind of charts. Because it just tells you stuff, you know. 2.5 people, or 2.5 people, 2.5%, which is 5 people, chose spontaneity. Spontaneity would not be in my top 5. but that's just me.
I wonder if the wealth one, for those couple people that chose it, translated to not, oh, they've got to have money, but that their friends know how to build wealth and they make smart decisions and their lifestyle is balanced. I wonder if that's what that translates to.
That is
That's
such a good point.
speculation.
I've looked over this data so many times, and that is not ever the thing that came to mind for me, but leave it to Horton to look at the good in people, because that is such a good point. Yeah. Ambition is also on there. 11% of people chose ambition. I would say that would probably be in my top 5. If I was going to put out top 5, it would be trust, physical attractiveness. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Trust, ambition, humor, because I want people to make me be better, right? Ambition, I want them to push me to be better, and their ambition is going to help me be better. Humor, we already talked about that. Dependable, and probably honest. Trust, honest, ambitious, humor, and the other one I said that I can't remember now. How about you? Can we do your live top 5 right here in the moment?
Ooh, okay. Definitely trust. Being a good listener. Honesty. Dependability. And I would say empathy.
Cool. What do you think, since we're talking about traits right now, what is confidence? I had 9% of people choose confidence as one of their top 5. So, seeing as you looked at the wealth in a completely different lens, what do you think of when you see that?
When I first read confidence, I think self-confidence. Like my friend has to be confident in themselves, which.
But to what end? Like, for what purpose?
Yeah. I don't know. That's not something I would choose.
I honestly don't even remember why I put that on there, but it's interesting to me that we had almost 10% of people choose that as one of their top 5.
Wow.
Unless they were looking at as confidence as in like, I can confide in you. That could it, like confidant.
Yeah. That would make more sense, I feel like, to me.
Look at me twisting the kaleidoscope like a Horton and trying to think the best of people.
You already sang the graduation song. So
did you ever think you'd see the day? Oh, the graduation song. That lives rent-free in my head. Okay. We've got a few more things we're going to go over before we close out today, before we move into the short answer. We'll go over these quickly because I know we've had you guys for a while, and we're going to close out here. But we're moving into a new section where people self-evaluate on a scale similar to a Likert scale. It's actually, I think, technically still, because it's five options. This is worded kind of uniquely because I wanted people to be as honest as they could without thinking, oh, I have to say definitely or that kind of thing. So the scale is never, not so much. So you're like, not so much. Sometimes, most of the time, and all the time. And like I said, I know that's a weird scale, but I really wanted to make it chill. And when I read the statement, I think you'll understand why. So this data shows up in a pie chart. All the other ones showed up as a bar chart, that kind of thing. So if you're interested in stats, you will see that's the difference. Okay, statement number 1, it's easy for me to connect with new people. So someone would say, never. I can never connect with new people. Or, not so much. I can't really connect with people. Sometimes I connect with people. Most of the time I connect with people, or all the time. I all the time connect with people. So that's why I kind of tweaked the scale on this one. It was almost half. It was 40, almost 48% said most of the time it's easy for them to connect with new people. And then we had 8% say not so much. And we did have a sliver that said never. So there are people who know within themselves that I cannot connect with new people. It doesn't mean it's not a skill that they can't learn. But at this juncture, when they took the survey, They knew, no, I can't. So just to give you an insight of what, the Friendeavor process, content process looks like, I would look at that and then I would say, you know what? Why don't we go over some skills for socializing? A few weeks ago, I dropped a video called Tips for Socializing. It was something like this that gave me the idea to do that.
You also sent that out during COVID. So I wonder if that skewed the results a little bit because it
Mm.
was hard for me to connect with people during COVID.
Yeah, that is true. April of
Yeah.
21,
I mean,
we were still
yeah.
on like weirdness. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important for people to take the survey now, because it'll help round out the answers.
Mm-hmm.
All right, moving on to the next one. That all important T word, trust. The statement is, I am trustworthy. I'm sure you are absolutely shocked to know that 70% said all the time I'm trustworthy. There's never one time that I'm not trustworthy. All the time, 70%, which is so interesting to me. And again, it's anonymous, yet people still want to see themselves in a better light. I would say most of the time, most of the time I'm trustworthy. It's not
Yeah.
that I'm intentionally breaking your trust. It just depends on the situation, right? Not
Yes.
I would be shocked to meet someone who's trustworthy 100% of the time. Yet 70% of people said all the time I am. It could be. I could
Yeah.
be completely wrong, but it's just interesting to me. And then I did have somebody who
Yeah.
said never. I am never I am never and I don't want to laugh
Never
at them because they're
trustworthy.
being honest, but I just think it's
Yeah.
funny. Like to tell to be like, yep, I know. I know that's not my
Way to be honest.
not my
Never.
strength. I might not
Oh
be
man.
trustworthy, but I am certainly not a liar because I just admitted I am never trustworthy.
Again, there are variables with this one
Uh-huh.
because
And everyone.
yes,
Yeah.
for me it also depends on the situation. I mean,
Hmm.
maybe that's oh, I hate to admit it, but it depends on the
It
situation.
does. Yeah. It depends on who it affects. If it doesn't affect
Yes.
anyone and it's just your weirdness that says, don't tell anybody this, but it has no consequence whatsoever. Like, no, I'm not going to go intentionally tell everyone, but if it comes up in conversation, I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm not going to lie. Okay, let's put it this way. If being trustworthy means that I have to lie, I'm not going to do that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Right.
like if it becomes between
Exactly.
your trust and my honesty, I will choose my honesty. All right, next one. I support my friends. Do you want to take a guess at what this one is? Or like
Oh
you can
man.
pick any one of the
Okay.
categories and tell me what you think. I'll give you a hint.
Okay.
Only 3 of the categories were chosen for this one.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So they were probably the top three.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like a lot of people went neutral with this one, so I support my friends most of the time.
It was almost exactly 50-50 split between all the time and most of the time. There
Oh
was
wow.
a 2%, hold on. No, like 1.5% sometimes. 1.5% chose sometime, but other than that, it was 48.7 and 49.7 of most of the time and all the time. What do you think? Do you think that's true? Do you think that these people all of the time support their friends or most of the time?
I think for me, I just really I avoid the absolutes unless it is 100%. And
Yeah.
so just to be honest with myself and because I always think I could do better, I would say most of the time. Definitely not all the time. I could do
Yeah.
better.
I would definitely choose most of the time too, because there are some situations, and you also have to think about this. And I don't want to get in too far of the weeds because I said we were going to wrap up, but if you support your friends all the time, 100% of the time, that includes when they're doing something dumb.
That's true.
Are you going to let them do something dumb just because you're supportive? Again, most people are
Right.
not looking at it in this light. They're looking at it in a they want to do something good or ambitious or whatever, and I'm going to be behind them 100%,
Yeah.
but there's variables. And I didn't set out to
Yeah.
trick people with this survey. It was just, what's your gut reaction? Well,
Hmm.
50%, almost 50% of people's gut reaction was all the time. All the time is for friends. So that could be
Yeah.
true. There could be 50% of people, even if their friends are doing something dumb, will support them. You
Yeah.
know, it does it
Or maybe
regardless
they
of the
read
situation.
that. Yeah. Maybe they read that and thought, I am supportive of my friends. So not
the action, but the being. I
Okay.
am supportive of my friends.
All right, let's keep going. I am willing to invite other people into my friend group. This one. Is it time for some honest time with Danielle? We should get a little sting made for that, a little music sting.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Before I even tell you the responses, let me just say it is not that I am unwilling to hang out with other people, but I am not willing. So I am unwilling, is what I'm saying. I am unwilling to invite people into my best friend tier. You have to earn your spot there, prove that you should be there. Okay, so when I posed this question, I was thinking best friend tier. I hadn't even developed the friendship pyramid at this time. Okay. 40% of people, 39.6, said all of the time they are willing to invite other people into their friend group. This does not mean that you can't hang out with other people. But as far as inviting them into your best friend tier or your friend group, as it were, I do not think 40% of people should be willing to do that. That is my PO, my personal opinion. But there it is. What are your thoughts? We also had 41% say most of the time. So 80% of people are saying, yes, people can come and be in my friend group.
Yeah. I think that might translate differently for different people. For you, your definition is invited them into your best friend tier, which yes, that should be a high bar
Yeah.
to get into your best friend tier. I think when I think of inviting people into my friend group, my best friends and I we've been a group for like a decade. And so it's
Yeah,
hard for me to
exactly.
imagine that.
See?
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard for me to imagine, I mean, having a fifth person.
Right.
Am I willing? Yes.
But it's not, are you willing? Is it all the time, most of the time, sometimes, not so much, or never? I wouldn't say never. It's definitely not so much for me.
Yeah.
So it would probably put you at most of the time.
Yeah. I mean, willing to branch out and hang out with other people, absolutely. And even to hang out with a fifth person with my four best friends.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I don't know. I don't know how to answer that one.
Yeah.
I might have skipped that one.
Yeah. Well, some people can't. I mean, you can. It is not like it doesn't let you finish if you don't, but don't mess with the data, so answer it. Okay, we got 5 more. Let's go. Let's bust through them.
Okay. Okay.
But they're so interesting, so I don't really know if we can bust through them.
They
But
really are.
Statement is I can keep a secret. Going back to the trustworthy thing, it is a most of the time thing for me. If it is something hilarious, that's not going to hurt anybody, but I would have a hard time keeping that secret. So it would definitely be a most of the time thing for me. But we had 62.5% of people say all the time. So either people are actually super, super trustworthy or they are liars.
Yeah, see, I mean, if they're,
It
I think
doesn't it go back
most
to the
people have told a secret.
yeah, but I think it all goes back to the honesty thing. And I mean, that might seem a little self-righteous about the honesty thing because your trustworthiness ends where my honesty starts, like that kind of thing. And a secret doesn't have to be, bad. It could be just funny that people don't want to know.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be that severe, but all that to say, I would be most of the time. However, 63% said all the time, and I only had one person say not so much, and nobody said never. So everyone thinks to some extent they can keep a secret. Next one's I am a jealous person. This, if you noticed, has flipped the script a little bit. It is not seeing yourself as all the time being a positive, all the time would be a negative. So it kind of did a switcheroo there. 50% of people said not so much. That means they deal with occasional jealousy. 23% said they are never jealous. 22, almost 23% said sometimes they're jealous. I had about 5% say most of the time. And I had some people say all the time. They're jealous all the time, which I applaud your honesty because
All the
that is
time.
not an easy thing to admit.
Yeah. Wow. This is a hard one for me because of the way it's worded. I overanalyze things. But I don't know. I am statements are so
Well, this would be you
I
choosing
don't
an
know.
absolute, right? If you chose
Yeah.
never or most or never all the time, So I would see
Yeah, this
myself as not so much because there are definitely times that I'm like,
yeah.
"Mm," why do they have that? Even at my
Yeah.
age. So it would definitely be not so much, but that's not to say I could never deal with that.
Yeah. So yeah, I get jealous. So yeah, not so much.
Yeah. All right. We did have someone not respond to this next, but at the time I pulled this data, it was about 200 people, and it shows how many responses there are to each. This one had one less than every other one. So one person chose not to answer this one. Question is, I make
Interesting.
excuses to avoid my friends. Nobody chose all the time on this one. Some people said most of the time. And I'm like, if that's the case, if most of the time you're avoiding your
Most of the
friends,
time.
you need to pick some new
Are they your
friends.
friends?
Like what why are you avoiding them? If is it because
Yeah.
they're lame? Is it because they push you to be better and you don't like that? Like you need to find new friends if most of the time you're making excuses to avoid them. It all goes back to
Yeah.
your tiers again. Like if you're avoiding your friends but you don't avoid your best friends, I could see that. There's some people that, I don't want to be around all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But 45% of
Even
people,
acquaintances.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. 45% of people said not so much. So occasionally you want to, because you want to make an excuse, you just don't want to hang out. Um,
Yeah.
but it should never fall in the most of the time category. Even the sometimes, which
Yeah.
is 23%. Why? Why do you do that? Analyze why you make excuses, because it could be some time to look in the mirror, make some changes, or look at your friend group and make some changes.
Right. Yeah. Because if they are good friends or best friends, I mean, you're just gonna, I mean, for me, I just tell them it's after church Sunday night. I'm like, nope, I'm tired. Bye.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have fun. I just did that this past Sunday.
And even that
So
is not an excuse. Like,
it's not
well,
an
I guess
excuse.
it kind
Yeah.
of is, but not fully. It's not like, oh, I have to
Um,
watch my neighbor's dog in the morning, like something
yeah.
lame like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. I said we had five more when I started this, but we actually only had four more. So this is our last one, and we're going to wrap up for today. But don't forget, in the future, we will have another podcast looking at this survey because we're only about halfway through. And if you're bored with this, I'm sorry, but the next half in the future will be short response where we'll actually get into some not just numbers. We're actually going to look at people's real responses. So our last one is probably the hardest one of all. Well, maybe not. That last one was pretty hard, but this one is the I am statement is I am living a life that I know people would want to be friends with me, also known as my actions and behaviors make me likable and make me look like I would be a good friend. This one is so interesting. There was the numbers. 45% of people said most of the time, which I think is pretty good.
Mhm.
30% said all the time. However, we had about 12% of people say never or not so much. They know that their actions and behaviors make people not want to be friends with them. And
That's self-aware.
yeah, here's a trivia question for you and the listeners, not just as my co-host. What was my very first Friendeavor video on?
Oh no. Was
If
it
you want a hint, what is the topic we are talking about in the survey right now?
a lifestyle?
It was about living a life that people would know you and be friends with. That was my very
Uh-huh.
first video. The cover art was a speech bubble that said, do people want to be friends with me? Because I was posing questions
I do remember that.
to ask yourself, hey, am I do you can't complain that you don't have any friends if you're not doing anything to make yourself friendly, right? My
Yeah.
mom used to quote at us, all the time. Like, if not every day, almost every day. To be a friend, you have to show yourself friendly, right? To make friends, you have to show yourself friendly. And she did that with my brother. She did that with me. And she did that with my sister. And she'll probably do it to her future grandkids too. So for the 10% of people who said, I know that I'm not living a life, that people want to be friends with me, take a step back, maybe watch that video again. I should probably look it back and see if I can make it, remake it, because it's been like, 2 years.
Yeah.
Probably could do
Well,
better
we
on it
can
now.
link that in the show notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will. It's interesting. And like I said, there's a whole other section of the survey that I think deserves its own episode. So we'll be sure to dive into that in the future. As a sneak preview, like I said, it's a short answer response where we actually asked people to discuss like red flags in friendship and personal definition of friendship and anything else they wanted me to know. And when we close out this episode today, I'm going to go back and look at the new responses, see if we can add anything. But yeah, that's all for this week. And thank you so much for taking the time to listen to Friendeavor the podcast. We are thrilled to be on this journey. This is episode 3. Next week, we are talking about and diving into the friendship pyramid, and we are super duper looking forward to that.
We're super excited. Thanks for following along, guys. I know this episode was lengthy, but we hope you found it interesting, because we did.
Yes, absolutely. All right, friendship is a journey. It is an endeavor, and we will see you next time on Friendeavor.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Friendeavor the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you enjoyed today's content, leave a review and share with a friend. You can find the show notes on our website, www.friendeavor.net, and in the description of this episode.
Friendship is a journey. It's an endeavor. We'll see you next time on Friendeavor.